Today, we're going to talk about things that I would consider if I were starting over again today. My business on the website has been live for over a year. I've been selling on eBay for well over a decade. Recently started doing Pokemon sales for singles at the end of January of this year. So eBay, long history, but the Pokemon singles on eBay, shorter history. Just kind of combining my experience long-term of selling on eBay, selling on TCG. I had been selling on TCG Player since about the middle of 2025. So I had a longer history selling there than I have on eBay. I actually no longer have inventory on TCG Player for now. That may change, but I have just been finding that eBay works better for me and my business. And that actually is a great segue into the intro of things that I would do if I were starting again today, knowing what I know now. So if I were a new seller interested in getting going, the first thing is just do it. In the words of Nike, just do it. Just start. Pick something and get started. Whether you have your own collection already that you've been accumulating and you've got a binder of the cards that you never want to sell, and maybe a box of cards that you never want to keep, you don't know what you're going to do with, start with those boxes right there. You got either binders or boxes of cards that you know are not part of your collection long term. Start with selling those. Make it easy on yourself. You don't have to spend any more money than you've already had on inventory. You're still going to have some expenses to buy materials to ship things out, but if you've got a collection, that's where I would start. Get rid of the cards that you're willing to part with. Maybe pick out some cards that you even like, but they've run way up in value. Maybe you've got some 151 cards. And yes, they've had a little bit of a pullback from the peaks that they recently hit, but they're still way higher than they were just a few months ago in value. Maybe you've got a bunch of those you can sell and kickstart your business. So that would be my first piece of advice. Just do it. Just start somewhere, do something. And if you're a collector, that's your easy, low-hanging fruit on where to start with inventory. Now, when it comes to deciding where to sell, I would actually, early on, I would kind of do the whole throw the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks method. I know a lot of people out there suggest picking one and sticking with it. But I would start with multiple avenues of selling. Don't dive too deep into any of them and just try to figure out which method you like the best. Like I said, I started selling on TCG Player. I loved how quickly cards sold to begin with, and I was really pushing hard to start with getting to that level 4 seller status as quickly as possible so I could unlock all the different fun tools that you get at level 4, the mass price tool, the ability to set your shipping to 0 on orders over $5, all the things that sellers love about TCG Player. I'd also try selling on eBay. Like I said, for me now, all of my inventory is no longer on TCG Player, and it's all on eBay. And there's pros and cons to both sites. So you got to try them both out. Maybe watch some videos like this, or go check out people like It's Phantom. He's awesome. He's a new seller, new YouTuber, but he's growing way faster than I am. He's got a lot of good insights. And there's a ton of other people as well that I'm drawing a blank on names, but there's a lot of resources on YouTube to go learn about what the pros and cons are every site, and give yourself an idea going into it which one sounds like it would be a better fit for you based on what fits in your style and what your goals are, and in your inventory. That can make a big difference as well. I think it's important to try multiple types of inventory, multiple selling platforms. It could even be vending. Like I already said, eBay and TCG Player are what most people think of, but maybe you love the interaction with people. Maybe that's how you want to sell your inventory. Try it out. Just buy a table, maybe split a table with a friend if you've never done vending before, see if you like it. Don't get crazy on buying all sorts of expensive stuff to vend, like display cases and things like People who've done it a lot have, but give it a shot. See if you enjoy interacting with buyers in person, or if you just don't like it. There's some people that think they like it, they go try it, and they realize that ain't for me. That's a lot of work to go set up my display every time, bring all my inventory, price out my cards ahead of time. And they realize very quickly that vending is not for them. They enjoy card shows, so maybe that's a place they can go to try to buy and get inventory. Now, I mentioned trying out multiple things like TCG Player and eBay to figure out which one you like and find the pros and cons. Well, I should probably go through what the pros and cons of them are as well. Number one, we'll start with TCG Player, just because it was where I started. And since I said I no longer sell there, I've got some insight as to why it didn't work for what I was looking for. Number one, the inventory that sells the best there, from what I have found, is the playable cards. Things that people want to buy to play the game. And the more inventory you build up, the more you can adjust and play with your prices, because people are out there using the cart optimizer tool and they're just looking for all the cards they want. And TCG Player will say, all right, based on all the cards you're looking for, here's the lowest price you can get and get every single card that you want. The bigger the inventory you have, the more chances you have of being able to fulfill a large order that other sellers can't fulfill. So people will be willing to pay more because they'd rather buy it from one person than multiple people. The cart optimizer on the buyer side is a great benefit for being a seller on TCG Player the larger your inventory gets. Another great feature about TCG Player, if you're wanting your inventory to stay with the pace of prices changing on cards, is once you get to level 4 and you've got the mass price tool, you can set all sorts of very detailed parameters on how your cards are priced, and you can have them update multiple times a day, one time a day. You're just limited to how many rules you can input, how many separate rules you can input. And the benefit of TCG Player is there's different nozzles you can turn on and off to increase or decrease sales. So that mass price tool, being able to change and price above market or below market, or change your shipping settings. There's lots of different things that you can just make a few clicks of the button and your entire inventory gets updated all at once. That type of customization and quick updating is not available on the eBay platform. So if you want to be able to tweak things here and there across the board on your inventory, TCG Player is going to be a great way to go. If you're starting with selling bulk cards, TCG Player is probably going to be your best option. I've found that most of my bulk cards definitely sold better on TCG Player than they've ever sold on the eBay side. There's one more thing I thought of about TCG Player that is actually a couple things are the two main reasons I stopped selling on TCG Player. I loved mass price tool. I loved cart optimization tool for buyers being able to find my inventory. What I did not like, and the two main reasons I stopped selling on TCG Player, number one, the inventory management. When you're first setting up your inventory, doesn't seem that big of a deal, alphabetizing and organizing your cards by sets. And it's nice how quickly you can list on TCG Player, not having to provide images. And as long as every card is near mint, you just put the cards that are the same next to each other. When someone buys one, you just grab whichever one and you send it out, no problem. The annoying part about that type of inventory system is whenever you get more inventory that comes in, you now have to integrate it with the inventory you already have, and it's very time consuming and tedious, and it made me want to gouge my eyes out every time I did it, to a point where a lot of times a lot of the inventory that I had on hand and needed to get listed got ignored because I just didn't want to filter in the new inventory and make it merge with the existing inventory. It was such a pain. I did not like it. The second big reason why I stopped selling on TCG Player is there's no integrated shipping. It is a little bit of a pain to have to buy your shipping on a different platform. And if I wanted to have an envelope tracked for a smaller order, you'd have to use another third-party service and pay a fee to add tracking to your shipment. Having to buy stamps, having to buy tracking on a third-party provider for those lower end orders where you're sending it out in a plain white envelope, pain in the butt. That gets into why I love eBay, why I switched to eBay. Two main reasons that I love eBay are the exact reasons I didn't like TCG Player. On eBay, I have a sorting system where I just have boxes labeled. This is box number 1, and I use 5-row boxes. So box 1, rows 1 through 5, and then sections A through Z. So whenever I'm listing cards on eBay, essentially the furthest section to the left and closest to the front in the box that is the most empty, essentially, is the one that I list the cards for. When I put a card on eBay, I write box 1, row 2, section A, or whatever it is. And then I know when that card sells, I go to box 1, section 2, row A, and I can find that card within a few seconds, right? Love it. Don't have to worry about integrating into existing inventory. Most of the time, I'll touch on that in a second. You basically just find the next section that's empty, add your cards in there, set up your SKU system so you know where to find it, and then the next batch of cards, you do the next section. So box 1, row 1, section A. All right, now section A is full. Next batch of cards is going to be box 1, row 1, section B. So on and so forth until all A through Z sections get filled in row 1, then you move on to row 2. Very straightforward, very simple. The one thing that I said I'd come back to on you don't have to integrate with existing inventory. Actually, Phantom just posted a video on this that he does it a little differently than I do because, you know, when those sections start to sell out and they shrink and they're empty, he doesn't know how to handle it or doesn't like how he would handle it. So literally all I do is if I'm pulling orders and I notice that box 1, row 1, section G is getting low on cards, the next time I list some cards, I'll just put, 20 to 25, 20 to 50 cards on my eBay store for that section. I'll just add more cards to that section. What happens when you start selling cards out of a row and it's not full and the cards kind of slide around and they can get kind of jumbled and hard to manage if you don't keep the rows fairly tightly packed. That's all I do is if I start feeling rows are getting a little bit too loose and cards are sliding around a little too much, just add a few cards to the sections that are light before you start filling out sections that you haven't started on. Second reason, and the number one reason why I use eBay is, I should say, what I just talked about is 1B, we'll call it. This is 1A. They're both equally important, but I would say the shipping is just slightly edged out as the tiebreaker for why I switched to eBay. Integrated standard envelope with the eBay standard envelope, tracking built in, insurance built in. You don't have to leave the platform at all. You click into an order, you tell it the size of the package, you tell it the weight of the package or the envelope. It tells you how much each different shipping provider will charge for what you've got. You buy the one that fits best. You print it out on a thermal printer, slap it on the envelope. It's already got your return address, the buyer's address, everything on it, all for you, ready to go. So I've mentioned this in previous videos. You can send multiple card orders out in the eBay standard envelope as long as the order total is no more than $50 and no individual card is worth more than $20 in that order. You sell a card for $20 and 1 penny, you can no longer use eBay standard envelope. So keep that in mind when you're pricing out cards. I personally price cards with free shipping, so you need to keep that in mind too. If you do charge for shipping, you could price the card at $20 and charge that shipping amount, get more than the $20 and still be able to ship eBay standard envelope. I don't do it that way, so I have to keep that in mind when I'm buying cards and listing cards, that I have to cover the cost of shipping, and I need to keep careful about, there's kind of a dead zone between a $20 card and about $26, where I'm better off selling the card for $19.99 and being able to ship it out with an eBay standard envelope versus selling it for $23 with a bubble mailer, because I'm the one paying for that bubble mailer. I make more money by just selling it for less and shipping it in a plain white envelope versus a bubble mailer. So keep that kind of stuff in mind if you are ever selling on eBay. So that's a lot of things to think about between TCG Player and eBay, and which one may be right for you. There are definitely more topics to think about. Again, on eBay, you've got to post pictures. You can use stock images, but I wouldn't recommend using stock images, except for maybe hollows and reverse hollows, bulk type cards you could probably get away with. But anything above that, I would not use stock images. So you've got to have a way to take pictures. I would highly recommend getting a scanner as quickly as possible. The Ricoh 8170 is what I use. I would say if I'm listing cards that I know I'm going to be selling at like a floor price of somewhere around $2 to $2.50, I can probably list 100 cards in 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much figuring out in my head I need to price cards at. But if I'm listing a bunch of EXs and I know that pretty much all of them are going to be at the same price, you can list a lot of cards in short order. eBay is a great tool to sell cards, and you get a premium on the cards. I think it's because people just like seeing the exact card they're getting versus TCG Player. They know they're buying a card that's supposed to be near mint, but they can't see with their own eyes to tell, is this card actually near mint before I buy it? And I just think you lose out on a lot of buyers for the non-playable cards that people are just buying because they like the look of, right? So that's another reason I guess I didn't touch on yet on why I like eBay is you can get a premium on your cards if you've got good high quality pictures. That would also be a con of eBay. If you don't have a way to get high quality pictures, or you don't do a good job of taking pictures, people are going to be a lot less likely to buy from you if they can't clearly see what they're buying. So another reason for getting a scanner like the one I have, the Ricoh, is very quickly you get high quality images that show all the imperfections, and you don't have to take the time to use your phone or a camera or whatever to take the photo. So highly recommend getting that as quickly as you can if you're going to be selling on eBay. Obviously don't spend money you don't have, or if you're early on with a lower budget, don't spend all your money on a scanner. Start with inventory. You're better off buying inventory and putting in the work with the lower speed equipment on the front end than buying the good equipment but not being able to buy the inventory. Make sure you're thinking about that as well. That brings me to my next point. I'm sure there's things that I forgot to talk about on eBay and TCG Player, but I'm noticing this video is already getting kind of long, so I want to get into things to consider on types of inventory based on your starting budget. I did a lot of thinking on this, and I think just based on the cost of buying materials and supplies to ship items out after you sell them is what backed me into the number that I came up with. So I would say if you're starting with $500 or less as your seed money, I would start with trying to buy bulk. Don't try to buy collections. Bulk is going to be safe, it's going to be low cost, and it's going to leave you plenty of money to go buy envelopes, buy a cheap thermal printer. I'm telling you guys, I have a Rollo and I love the Rollo, but you don't need to start with a Rollo printer. You can find thermal printers for like 50 or 60 bucks. You might even be able to find cheaper ones than that and just upgrade later to a nicer one if you want to. But I would say your must-haves to start: buy a thermal printer, obviously the labels that go with it, buy a pack of 100 envelopes, the number 6 size envelope, not the number 10. That was one mistake I made early on. I bought the number 10 size because that was the only size I could buy in a pack of 500 at my local Walmart. What does it matter? An envelope's an envelope. Well, I learned very quickly that those smaller envelopes, because they fill almost all the way when you use card savers to protect the cards, they don't have a lot of flop. They don't have as high of a tendency of getting stuck in machines, having cards damaged because they're sliding around too much. You can buy a small pack of number 10 so that you've got a bigger size if someone buys a ton of bulk and you need more than a number 6. Go out, buy some bubble mailers. You can buy a pack of like 50 bubble mailers on Amazon for not too bad of a price. Again, eventually you want to buy these things as big a bulk as you can to bring your per item cost down. And then I'd say the last thing you really need for shipping materials is penny sleeves and card savers. I recommend using the website Cardboard Gold if you are buying in bulk, by the case type quantities. That's the best price you're going to get for sleeves, team bags, and card savers. If you're just starting out, it's going to cost you more per item to buy them like on Amazon or at a local card shop. But just find them the cheapest you can in the smaller packs starting off. I wouldn't go too crazy until you try things out and know that you are going to enjoy doing this long term. A case of card savers from Cardboard Gold is, I believe it's 2,000 card savers, and it's like $180. Don't go spend $180 on card savers unless you know you're going to use them and you're going to stick with this business, okay? I'm not telling you to go spend all $500 on buying cases of supplies if you don't know if you're going to like it. What I am telling you is, if you do like it, if you know you're going to be in this in the long run, eventually when you have enough capital that buying a case at a time is not going to prevent you from going out and buying collections and buying inventory, then buy them in bulk, the biggest bulk you can afford, until it no longer benefits you. At some point, they stop giving you discounts, but keep getting your orders on those bigger and bigger until it doesn't benefit you or until it affects your ability to buy inventory. Your number one expense needs to be your inventory, because you're not making money if you don't have inventory. That was a much longer rant than I was planning to go through, but I think it was necessary. And if anyone has any suggestions on things that I missed or any questions on anything I covered, let me know down in the comments. Definitely am willing to interact with you guys and answer questions you may have as well. So now, moving on to what would I do if you're starting with $500 or more. If you're closer to the $500 number, just dabble with collections. Still buy bulk because it's low cost, low risk. But you can start to dabble in trying to buy smaller collections. I have really found that cards that are kind of TCG market value of about $2 to $17 is really the sweet spot, because those are the cards you can price for $19.99 and below with free shipping, and you can use eBay standard envelope. That's why you want to keep the price $19.99 or below. And because they're cheaper cards, there's a much larger buyer base of people that can afford those cards. So if you're going to start dabbling in collections, as fun as the expensive cards are, I've really been finding those cards, like I said, in that $2 to $17 range are like the bread and butter of the items that I sell. They sell quick, they sell for a profit, and they ship cheap. So that's what I'd be looking for early on in collections. Once you start building up capital and you find I've got money sitting there that I want to spend on inventory and I'm not finding enough cheaper cards, go ahead and start buying some bigger cards. But I wouldn't get too crazy buying those bigger cards early on, unless you're getting just an absolute steal of a deal that you can't pass up. I guess that kind of touches on how I would start the business, on what types of collections I'd be looking for, what types of cards I'd be looking for. Next, if you're starting with $1,000 or more, I might consider skipping bulk. I know there's so many people on YouTube who talk about selling bulk as their main or only inventory, and it's very easy to profit when you buy bulk. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's no other inventory to be easier to profit on and not risk losing money on than bulk. But there's also no other product out there that is more work. And if you're someone like RNG Games and you're a big business and you've got employees and staff that can help with that, I absolutely agree that bulk is probably a great thing to keep in your store. The more you build it, the more you feed it, the better it does for you. Go listen to RNG Games. The dude is a genius. There's a reason why he's successful, and he sells a ton of bulk. I'm pretty sure he actually does mostly sell magic bulk though, which admittedly I don't know anything about. But I think early on when it's just you, if you're on a limited time schedule like I am, because I have a family and I've only got a few hours at most every night to work on this, the amount of work and effort that goes into selling bulk is less beneficial to me than buying a 100 card collection and getting those listed with higher cost but higher dollars worth of profit per item. Your percent margin on bulk is always going to be higher, but you buy a card for a penny and sell it for 50 cents, you made 49 cents. Yes, your cash outlay to buy that collection early on is much lower, but I could sell a card that I buy for $5 for $6 after fees and make $1, and that's the same amount of work. So when I'm working on a limited time constraint, I am personally finding that I find more enjoyment, number one, having smaller orders to fulfill, and it's less work than trying to pull a 100 card bulk order. I've packed enough of those 100 card bulk orders to know I don't enjoy doing it. Yeah, if I sell 100 cards that I make 20 cents a piece on, that's $20, but I could also make $20 a different way too by selling one bigger card. I don't know. For me, the time of selling bulk is what has slowly pulled me away from putting it on my store. And maybe I'm completely off my rocker, and maybe RNG Games, if he ever sees this, would tell me I'm an idiot. But I think if you're just starting out, bulk is great, even if you're on a time constraint. But if you start building up enough cash to be able to buy those collections, again, if you're working on a restricted time budget, to me it just seems more enjoyable and more beneficial for me as a business by not selling much of that bulk. And then eventually, if you are someone on a time constraint and you start doing so well that you can quit your job and this can be your job, and maybe you start a store, maybe you start hiring employees, that could potentially be a great time to start getting back into selling bulk. I don't know. To me, it seems like it could constantly be an evolving business based on where your situation is. Where you start is not where you're going to end. So just be open to changing and adjusting. Like I said, if I'm just starting out, I would throw the spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks, try everything out, see what you enjoy. Maybe you would list bulk cards and you love bulk cards, but it just doesn't bring me any enjoyment selling bulk cards. And on TCG Player, it might be a much better choice than on eBay, because on eBay, they just don't seem to sell. And again, It's Phantom just did a video not that long ago talking about how he was trying to sell some play sets, and there's just no traction on them at all. So I guess what you source, what you have as your inventory also may be what directs you to TCG Player or eBay. But this is a crazy long video. I was not planning to record for this long at all, and I'm sure I repeated myself many, many times. But hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I know I definitely didn't cover some things. So if there's questions you have, help me help you guys. As Jerry Maguire said, put it down in the comments. I am always watching the comments come in and trying my best to reply to the non-troll comments, and I'm always willing to help. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you made it this far somehow, please like this video. Consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell. As always, check out the links in my description to find links to my eBay store and my website. And I'm going to end with a reading from the Bible, as I've been doing as well. So since we're still just a few days after Easter, figured I would read a little bit of passage that also kind of goes back into the topic of Jesus's death. That goes back into the trial, so to speak, of Jesus with Pilate. So we're going to read out of John, starting in chapter 18, verse 28. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." So I wanted to read that passage just because I mentioned in one of my previous videos that Pilate didn't really want to put the judgment on Jesus to be crucified. He wanted it to be very clear that he did not believe this man, Jesus, was guilty of anything worth the penalty of death. And there's just a passage that lays out, hey, he's trying to say no, like if you want to kill him, if you want to seek that justice on him, you need to go do that in your own law, because I don't want to have that blood on my hands. I find it very interesting. I don't know how else to tie this into anything else, I guess, but it's more of an interesting fact that the very people who Jesus came to save are the people who sent him to his death. So that is gonna do it for today's video. It is late, I'm tired, I gotta try to edit this quick and then get to bed. But again, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. God bless.